Hello and welcome to Grandview's virtual session about our social work program. We're really excited to be doing this session today. And we've got a couple of folks from the social work department that are going to talk all things about the program and how to get admitted and that sort of thing. I will start by introducing myself and we'll just go around and everybody can introduce themselves. I'm Autumn Luce. I work in the admissions office at Grandview. Specifically, I work with students that transfer from Des Moines Area Community College. And I'll toss it over to Sherry.
Sorry, I was muted. Okay, I'm Sherry Swanson, and I work with students, transfer students who are coming from any of the other community colleges in the state of Iowa. And I also work with students who transfer from the University of Iowa.
And then before I throw it to those in the social work department, we do have the chat feature going. So if you are in this session and you have a question, feel free to add it to the chat and I'll make sure that we get it addressed throughout the session. Kathy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Kathy Beck-Cross, and I have been here at Grandview in the social work program since 2013. I actually have to take that back. The social work program didn't start until 2015, and we graduated our first class of students in 2017. So I was here for the 2 years prior to the program starting to help with the paperwork and that sort of thing to get it going. And prior to being here at Grandview, I worked in the field for almost 30 years. I worked in child protection. I worked with adults that had chronic mental illness. I worked in substance abuse counseling, and I worked for 18 years at a school district where I worked with individuals and families and community members, as well as with the school to help ensure that students and families had a good experience with school and that the community also had a good experience with the school district.
Wonderful, thank you. Mike, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Mike Sela, and I'm a faculty in the social work department and I've been here since January of 2016. I'm also the field education director. So part of the social work program, your last semester, you do a 450-hour placement, and I'm the one who will help you find that placement and help you with that process in the last semester. Prior to coming here, I've been in the mental health field for quite a while. I was a therapist with my own private practice. Prior to that, I worked in a couple of different rural community mental health centers, both as a therapist and as an executive director at one of the agencies. So I have some of that nonprofit management experience as well.
Wonderful, thank you. Kathy, can you tell us a little bit about the program and what the requirements are to get in?
Sure, absolutely. I would be glad to talk a little bit about that. So in order to be accepted to the Grandview social work program, a student has to take prerequisites and then they apply to the program. And the prerequisites are introduction to social work, which can be accomplished also by completing an equivalent course at DMAC, the HSV 186, Introduction to Human Services, as well as their field placement of 150 hours. So you have to have Introduction to Human Services or Introduction to Social Work here at Grandview. The second one is you have to have Introduction to Psychology, then Introduction to Sociology, and English 101 or English composition. So those four things and an essay that is submitted in application to the program are what are considered as a part of being accepted to the program. Also, what's included in the list of requirements is a series of things that are associated with being in the Introduction to Social Work course, and those are modified for students who complete HSV 186 at the community college level. So one of the things that we do for each of our students across all of the courses, except at the very end, is we help students develop their professionalism. And we do this so that when they enter into the profession, they are able to be good colleagues, And so we help students with that by, first of all, teaching professionalism, and then we assess it within every course. So part of the application to the program is the level of professionalism the student demonstrates in Introduction to Social Work, both within the class, with their peers and colleagues, and in the 30-hour placement that they complete as a part of the Introduction to Social Work course. Mike, pick it up from there with some of the additional requirements.
As far as admission goes, I think you have most of the stuff. I mean, you have to be admitted to Grandview first. We're one of the few programs at Grandview where you get admitted to the social work program after you've been admitted to Grandview, and it's an extra step that is required.
Is there a deadline to apply to the program?
Students who take Introduction to Social Work in the fall have until December 1st to apply. Students who take it in the spring have until April 1st. And then students who take it in the summer have until August 1st. So what happens is that a student takes Introduction to Social Work, for example, in the spring. In the spring, they put in their application for the program. We go ahead and provisionally have them register for advanced social work courses in the following fall, because we presume that they will be accepted. We move forward with presuming that they will be in the program unless we find out something otherwise. So then we'll register them for the advanced social work courses. So whether they take courses during the day or in the evening depends on whether they want to be in the day program or the evening, which is blended and online. One other application requirement that I should mention is that the prerequisites that I mentioned, the Introduction to Social Work, Introduction to Psychology, Sociology, and the English 101, those require a 2.5 GPA, and to stay in the program, a student is expected to maintain a 2.5 GPA. If a student is close to the 2.5 GPA, but slightly under it, when they put in their application, we have accepted students provisionally, giving them 2 semesters to be able to get their GPA up to 2.5.
Wonderful. Is there, I know with some programs, there's a maximum number of students that we will admit into that program each semester or year. Is that the case with social work, or is that unlimited, as many people as meet the requirements?
We will take as many students as meet the requirements. We actually are a growing program, so we just added a 3rd person. She was not able to be with us today because she's teaching, but Kimberly Gregory, who used to teach at DMAC and at University of Iowa in their School of Social Work, is our 3rd faculty member who we have added because of growing in our program. So anytime we get more students, we are required actually by our accrediting body to add additional faculty members, because we're required to maintain a 1:25 ratio, which means each faculty member cannot be assigned, so to speak, more than 25 students. So we're in the 60s, mid 60s right now. When we get to the point where we're over 75, we'll add somebody new. So we can always add students.
So you mentioned the 1:25 ratio of faculty to students. Can you give us an idea of what class sizes look like within your program?
So I'll talk about a couple of class sizes, and then I'm going to have Mike talk about the field education in terms of class sizes. So the introductory class of Social Work 101 tends to be a little bit smaller simply because it's offered 3 times each year. So pre-COVID, I would say class sizes range from about 12 to 18 for Introduction to Social Work. The summer section is a little bit smaller. The largest class size that we had a couple of sections last year that were 28. That's very unusual. Our typical cap in a class is 24. And now that we have added evening sections, we'll be able to be back down about that. So what's important to know about that is that means you get individual attention within your classes. These are not large, massive open enrollment courses where you might have 50 or 100 students in them. You're going to get smaller individual attention. Mike, do you want to talk a little bit about how the class sizes work in terms of field?
Yeah, so your last semester, you have your 450-hour placement, which is about 30 hours a week. So it is almost a full-time job that you're doing when you're in that. And that's all individualized. So you will most likely be the only student who's doing their social work, call it an internship if you want, at that place. But then we also have a seminar once a week where you get a chance to check in with your classmates, share any of the challenges you've had that week, and then talk about how do we apply some of the professionalism that you've talked about through your whole time here, and how do you apply the skills you've learned into your particular setting.
Mhm.
And so at that level, it's about the same. We're around 24 students in the seminar, but we also do a significant amount of small group work that you'll do, especially when we are pre-COVID was significantly more, where you were in small groups through almost your entire time here as specific teams. We still incorporate it into all levels of our classes.
I think one thing that's important to know about the social work program, besides the fact that the class sizes are relatively small, is that I kind of jokingly say to students, if you want to really just kind of blend into the woodwork and not be known, then probably Grandview in general is not a good school for you, because the faculty here will really strive to get to know you as a student and be able to support you as a student, especially in the social work program. Mike has worked a long time in the field. I've worked a long time in the field. Kimberly's a little newer into the field, but she has lived in the metro area for a long time and also works part-time with the National Association of Social Workers Iowa chapter. We know the people in the community, and we have professional connections that we want to make sure we pass along to our students. So I tell students that we really want to get to know you as a person, not because we want to get up in your business, but because we want to know what your professional goals are, so that we can help connect you with the people in the community that can help you with that, and help make sure that the extra courses that you might choose to take will also benefit you in terms of your future career plans.
And just to add on that, you're also you're in the classes with the same classmates that you have as you move forward through the program, and you develop some strong relationships, connections. I don't think we've ever had a class that didn't have like a Facebook group that was just for their class, or a Instagram or whatever social media of the day is, that there's such a strong connection that people make with their classmates.
And we really reinforce that, because we say that someday you are going to be each other's colleagues. And within our courses, all of us do a lot of activities that relate working in teams, because social work is very much a team-based profession. When one goes out into an agency, they do not work by themselves. They are working in collaboration with other agencies and with people who have different styles and ways of working. And so we want students to have practice at learning those different ways of working across all dimensions of people, so that they're well-versed once they get into the field and their first job.
Wonderful. I do have a question that kind of came into my mind as you guys were talking. When you were talking about field placement and students doing those 30 hours, is it pretty common for students to have their field placement turn into full-time jobs? Just thinking about connections in the community. Does that happen pretty often?
So I could talk about the 30 hours and then Mike will talk about the 450. How about that? So the 30 hours is part of 101, Introduction to Social Work. In every single class, there is some student who is offered a job by their 30-hour placement. And I just found out today in Introduction to Social Work that has happened already with 2 of our placements. One is a student did her 30 hours at Central Iowa Services and Shelter, and they have offered her a job when she's done with her 30 hours. Another one is doing her 30 hours with Orchard Place PACE, and they have offered her a part-time job outside of her 30-hour placement. So it's very common to be offered a job even before one graduates with the 4-year degree in the place where they did the 30-hour placement.
Yeah, so in the case of the 450 hour, it's a similar thing that I can't think of a year where we haven't had someone, at least one person, get their job where they've completed their practicum. But what is more likely is more students get their job based on a connection that they made while at their practicum. So it might not be at the same location, but they made a connection. Now, equally successful, at least from my perspective as the field director, is sometimes students also learn that this is a setting that I don't want to practice at. And so that doesn't necessarily lead to a job, but it all leads to more job satisfaction of not pursuing a job in that particular
Yeah, that's a really good point. For sometimes I tell students, knowing exactly what you want to do career-wise is typically more a process of elimination than it is just knowing exactly what you want to do.
Mhm.
So that's
True.
great. Um, Kathy, can you talk a little bit about what sets Grandview social work apart from other social work
Mhm.
programs in Iowa?
Sure, sure. I think what sets us apart from other social work programs is that we have some type of immersion in every single course. And what I mean by immersion is experience with some type of population embedded within that course. And so the purpose of that is to expose the student to a variety of different populations that they may not have considered they were interested in. So when students sign up for the 30-hour placement in Introduction to Social Work, I tell them that they have a couple of options. They can either choose one of the placements that I have secured and choose something that they absolutely know they're interested in, or they may choose one of the placements that they're not sure about because just having 30 hours is a little bit of a tiptoe into experiencing that. Now, COVID has changed things a little bit, so I'm going to talk about how things are going to be once COVID is over with. And how they were pre-COVID. But for example, in a 200 level course that students are able to take once they're admitted to the program, it's called Human Behavior in the Social Environment. Students get to spend time at Luther Park, which is a long-term care facility that's near us, where they go over and twice a month, they meet with somebody who has an early onset of, or an early end of dementia, and learn what it's like to interact with somebody in dementia. In social policy, which is Social Work 405, students get the experience of being able to go up to the State House and talk to legislators about a bill under consideration and talk with them about why they think they ought to vote a certain way. Mike, I'm going to have you share what some of the immersions are in the courses you've taught.
Sure. So one of our classes is practice theory methods that focuses on organizational and community level social work. And in class you get assigned a nonprofit that's out in the community. You spend the entire semester with a small group, assessing that organization, learning how it works, looking at its bylaws, looking how it operates, behind the curtains. And then you will eventually it culminates with you writing a grant for them, identifying a need within the community that organization can fulfill, and searching down a potential funder for that service and actually writing a grant. So that would be an example at that level of something you do. We do a practice theory methods course, which focuses on individual. And in that one, you might, we learn about interviewing skills and, how to meet with a client, how to get them to share personal information that you need to figure out what are good interventions to use. So that might be working along with another organization that is maybe doing like client satisfaction surveys with their own clients, and we'll have you go out and interview a few clients to find out what are their needs. So those would just be a couple of different examples.
So in addition to the immersions in every single course, also, I think that's really important to talk about that sets us apart. And I've heard about this particular aspect from students who have gone other places, is that individual attention that we have, not only in terms of advising and making sure that you're taking the courses that are appropriate for you, that you graduate on time, that you are successful in your courses, is the extra work that faculty across the board at Granville will do to help make sure students are successful in their courses. Now, that's not to say we do the work for the students, but we do work with students to help them be successful when challenges come along. The other thing I'd like to mention is the fact that we have an incredibly high employment rate for our students in the social work program. So the industry standard is whether or not a student has a job within 6 months of graduation. And I would say like 99% of our students have a job within 3 months. That is if they want a job. We've had some students who have had babies and have decided to stay home for a while. Many of our students have jobs where they can start the Monday after they walk across the stage for graduation.
That's really neat. That's cool.
I think one more thing to add that is different about our program is, and this is once again hearing from students who have attended other programs, is that in other programs, they feel like they have to change to fit into the system, where they feel like here we'll often change the system to make it more so that they can fit in. And they're seen here, they feel like they're an individual with unique needs and unique strengths. And
Mhm,
they feel like they're just a cog in the wheel, just a number.
mhm. And you know, I think that's because we're social workers, and that's what social workers do. I mean, we're here in a position of faculty, but what social workers do is they try to help people figure out how they can be successful. And I sometimes will say to my students, with all love and respect, you're my clients now. And when I had clients, my job was to help launch them into whatever it is that we're trying to accomplish. And that's still what we're trying to do, is help launch them. I'm going to mention one other thing on that, and that's that we continue to have consistent and deep contact with the people who have graduated from our program. They will come into our classes and speak. I know Mike and I both have people that we hear from on a personal basis after they have graduated. We don't have personal relationships with students in terms of, you know, social media or going out for coffee before they graduate, but after they graduate. We also make use of students who have graduated from a program on our advisory council. And our advisory council is made up from leaders from the community who help shape what our program looks like. They tell us what they're looking for in new hires and help make sure that, provide us with the guidance to make sure that the courses that we offer and the content is what we need. So alumni on our advisory council help shape that too. We also have current students on our advisory council because we really want them to weigh in on how is this educational process working for you. It's not just the product of getting the degree, it's the process of being successful as you work towards the degree.
Great. Shifting gears just a little bit, since this session is specific to transfer students, we do have many transfer students that come into Grandview having a liberal arts AA degree, you know, a 2-year degree from another school. As far as a degree completion timeline goes, can you give us a general idea of what that looks like for a full-time student?
Sure, that's really exciting because we have structured the program so that a transfer student can complete the rest of their degree in 2 years. If they are full-time during the day, that means they would not need to take necessarily any courses in the summer, especially if they've gotten an AA. So they would have the summer off, but they can choose whether they want to take the day section, the day track, or whether they want to take the evening track. And the evening track does require that a student take courses during the summer, but also a few of the courses are available online, which can make it a little bit easier for students juggling multiple responsibilities.
Wonderful. When a student gets admitted into the program, is there a very specific sequence of courses they take, or can they pick and choose at their leisure?
It would be probably helpful if I shared what the 2-year plan of study looks like. So why don't I go ahead and do that real quick? We're going to go ahead. Okay, you can see that. Am I correct?
Yep.
All right. So this is what the 2-year plan of study looks like for a student who is taking courses during the day, and I can show what the evening one looks like. There are a few courses that can be moved around, but some of them are required to be in sequence. So if you look here, you can see there's a practice theory and methods course 1. That is a course that has students learn to work with individuals. Students must take that before they take practice theory and methods 2, which is working with families and other small groups. And they have to complete that before they take practice theory and methods 3, which is working with communities and organizations. The majority of the other courses can be taken in a slightly different order than what they're listed here. Statistics for social sciences must be taken before social work research methods, which must be taken before the social work research project. But mental health and wellness through the lifespan can be taken at different times throughout the curriculum. And it's now available in both the fall and in the spring. The field education and senior seminar have to be taken at the end. Cultural competence could be taken at a different time. Social welfare policy and programs would have to be taken in this particular spring in a 2-year rotation. So the answer is some of them can be taken out of order and some have to be taken in that order. I can show what the evening rotation looks like, and that is slightly different. So there is the fall that includes introduction to social work, and then the additional courses that the student may or may not have had at DMAC, including human development or developmental psychology, as it's called at DMAC, social psychology, And then you can see from the O's on here that some of the courses are available online. The student does not have to take them online, but they are available online. So 3 of the courses in the social work program are available online. You can see the online and evening section, track takes a little bit longer. One starts in the fall and goes through the spring and summer, then has another fall, spring and summer. So it does take a little bit longer, but for students who have other obligations such as work and family, they may need to be able to spend more time open during the day so that they can complete their degree in the evenings.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm going to open it up to questions. I know we have a couple of students here and an advisor. If any of you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself or add to our chat. Just want to make sure I'm covering all our bases here and answering any questions that you might have.
And Autumn, would you please allow Kimberly Gregory to introduce herself? She has gotten out of class and is able to chat a little bit. She's our 3rd faculty member.
Absolutely. Kimberly, take it away.
Hello, I did unmute myself. I am Kimberly Gregory, and this is my first year here at Grandview. I've previously done some adjunct teaching at the University of Iowa and DMAC, and some advising. Let's see, what else? I teach Practice Theories and Methods 3 this semester, Human Behavior in the Social Environment. And I also teach, I am teaching mental health throughout the lifespan online this semester.
Wonderful. Kathy, you had mentioned a couple of classes that involved research. If a student is transferring to Grandview and they have no research experience, is that okay? And will they learn that process in these classes, or do they need to have any prior research experience?
I'm glad that you brought that up, because one of the things I will say to students is that you don't have to know how to do research, because we'll teach you how to do that. It's just like the rest of our coursework. You're coming to college so that we can teach you how to do that. In order to be successful in research, what you have to be, though, is curious. And when you finally get to the point where you're doing the advanced research projects, so students actually get to pick their own topic, which is really, really thrilling, because it's not a topic that's been assigned to them. It's one that they really have a vested interest in. So the 2 courses prior help set them up to be successful in the research class. And no, you don't have to know how to do research. You just have to be able to be patient, ready to learn, and be curious.
Wonderful, thank you. Can you think of anything else that you'd like to share with us about your program that I haven't asked you yet? No, anybody? Any questions?
Mike's unmuting.
I just want to say, I also think we're a really fun program. We emphasize self-care in several of our courses. We recognize that people who are going to do social work, it can be a very intense job. What we do as a profession can be we work with people who haven't gotten equal access. We work with people who have been dealing with traumas throughout their life, and all that's a heavy sort of job. But we also talk about how to take care of yourself, how to build up your resilience so that it doesn't get you down, how to prevent burnout. And I think we are a department that works very well together, and we support each other. And I think that our students see that, and our students feel that. And so if you're coming here to be part of the social work department, it's really, you're becoming more of the social work family. And I think all 3 of us would agree with that. So.
Okay.
Very well said. Thanks, Mike.
I would share, I'm the newest part of the team. I don't know what was shared before, but as a new person to the team here in the social work department, I know that I feel very supported, and what Mike says is very true. I see the students, if they want to come in, sit and do their homework, we have a space for them to do that. But it is very much, we as faculty know when our students are not in class, when our students, we're family, and we know we don't gossip, but we will share concerns if we see concerns with students, and very well supported. I feel very well supported, and I know that I have support from my staff, for my colleagues, and I know that the students feel very well supported. When I came here, some of the things they talk about is Mike and Kathy. So it's like, you know, we are a family, and they know that Mike and Kathy care about them as individuals, but also as students.
That's great. Thank you for your input on that. Any other questions? If not, we'll wrap up our session.
Future students, we look forward to seeing you and having you in class.
Wonderful. All right.